all the different burials here in the Ingersoll Rural Cemetery, which one do you think had one of the largest funerals? The answer might surprise you. This is Stone Secrets. So this is the story of Alexander Gordon Harris, better known to all of Canada as Reverend Harris. A.G. Harris was born in a log cabin about a mile or 2 miles south of Ingersoll in 1841. He was the son of Daniel Harris Jr., grandson of Eli Harris, who had come here and was surveyor of the little village of Oxford-on-the-Thames, dating back to 1811. Eli had a son, Daniel Sr., who built a little stone farmhouse that can still be seen today east of the Elmhurst Inn. Well, A.G. attended the local schools, the local one-room school in Dereham Township. At the age of 18, realizing that he had lived, as he looked back, kind of a wild and reckless time, he became converted at a Methodist camp meeting. So one of these group meetings that would take place in probably a grove inside of a forest. So the church services were held by saddlebag preachers who would travel by horseback to different communities. So recognizing the error of his ways in his young age, he decided to commit himself to Christ and become a preacher. He spent the next 3 years studying Methodism at Victoria College in Cobourg, which was one of the leading university colleges in Upper Canada at the time. 1864, he was then sent out to begin preaching and was sent to the Aylmer area. Spent the next 4 years preaching in that part of Ontario, and then was ordained in 1868. Came back to Ingersoll and married Sarah Margaret Williams, who had been born initially in Niagara Falls and moved to Ingersoll with her parents when she was 13. Together they would serve the church for the next 50 plus years of marriage at some 20 different parsonages as far east as Scarborough, west to Leamington, Port Stanley to the south, and as far north as Lucknow up in Bruce County, Ontario. So they traveled considerable distances together. Maggie, as she was affectionately known by the family, Maggie and Alex, or A.G., had 6 children, 5 of whom lived to adulthood. Their infant daughter, Mary Elizabeth, died in 1877 from complications with a spinal disease. The grief and sorrow among the family must have been so great that A.G. did not perform the committal service, but instead another minister looked after the final rites for their daughter. She's buried just directly behind the parents. The other 5 children all grew to adulthood. Percy became a teacher out in Winnipeg as it was developing. George and Ada, brother and sister, both married and both became educational missionaries that went off to China. And the youngest, Winifred, remained a spinster, but she worked as a piano teacher here in Ingersoll, and then she too also moved out to Winnipeg. Meanwhile, A.G. and Maggie are going all over Ontario, southern Ontario predominantly, serving the Lord at all of these different churches, on average about 3 years per span, and then they would be told where they were going to go next. Spent different times at different locations in the city of London, but they also preached in Tempsford and Florence and other places in Ontario. They retired in 1917 and lived in Ingersoll for a period of time. Maggie suffered from blindness in the last 6 years of her life, and she passed away in 1921 and was buried here with her infant daughter. After her death, then A.G. went out west with Winifred. They moved out to Winnipeg to be closer to the rest of the family. And even though he had officially retired, he was still known to be still preaching in different churches in the Winnipeg area. And by all accounts, quite animated during his services. So he continued to carry on, and when he died at the age of 95 in 1936, he was recognized as the oldest and longest serving Methodist minister in the Dominion of Canada. There was a funeral service for him in Winnipeg, and then his body was transported by train back to Ingersoll. And 8 other officiants, other clergymen, participated in the final committal service for Reverend Harris here. So it was viewed as one of the largest funerals to ever take place here in the Ingersoll Rural Cemetery. Well, when you look back at their life story, together, husband and wife had seen so many changes throughout time, from living in log cabins to seeing steel and glass skyscrapers being built, from using candles and fireplace to illuminate these log cabins to electric lights, street lights, from traveling by horse and buggy to trains, planes, automobiles. They had witnessed the Civil War. They knew about the struggles between the North and the South. They knew about the Northwest Rebellion in Canada. They saw the South African War. They saw the suffering caused by the First World War. So just imagine all what they must have been thinking and experiencing throughout their entire lifetime. Right? So the family continued through successive generations. The great-granddaughter and great-grandson have both served in the ministry, and by extension, other family members are nearby. Right? Maggie's parents, George and Mary Williams, are just buried further down the same row here. Their cousin was James Harris, who became the big cheese in the opening days of the Canadian Dairymen's Associations and the formation of the cheese industry in Canada. Another cousin was Alanson Harris, who would go on to amalgamate with Daniel Massey to form the massive Massey Harris farm implement manufacturing company across Canada. And one of his sons became the famous Canadian artist Lorne Harris. And the next generation, again, more artists in the family. So the Harris family has had a significant role in the history of Ingersoll and Oxford County, Ontario, and all of Canada. This is just one of the many stone secrets you can find here in the Ingersoll Rural Cemetery.